Okay, 2008 Audi Q7. I suspect that the refrigerant is low, so I'm going to do an AC service. And the reason I think the refrigerant is low is the AC is cold on one side, not the other. I'm not going to go into the diagnosis, but I will show how to do an AC refrigerant service the best way possible, which is with individual AC service components. So first we're going to evacuate the refrigerant by pulling it out of the car and pushing it into this tank and weighing what we took out. Then we're going to vacuum the system down and we're going to check how many microns we're at with this micron gauge. And finally, we're going to weigh in virgin refrigerant with this scale. And the whole process will be happening through this manifold gauge set. Okay, so now that I'm gauged up, I can see that there is in fact some refrigerant in here. It's not down to zero. But these cars tend to be a little finicky with the refrigerant quantity. We're not 100% sure that we're really not sure that this will fix this vehicle, but as the sort of cheapest, easiest thing to try first before really going deep with, you know, scanning with an Audi scanner and trying pressure switches and modules, we're just going to make sure the refrigerant is at the right level. So this first step essentially replaces the old-fashioned way of just letting all the refrigerant out, which is very bad for the environment and illegal and expensive if you're fined. So we need to recapture the old refrigerant and keep it in this bottle. And what we do with the refrigerant we've recaptured is we send it off to be recycled. So instead of letting it out into the environment, we're what you're calling recovering the refrigerant. So I like to, as a general good practice, weigh how much I've recovered, because that'll tell me if this car was or was not low. So this car takes between 2.2 and 2.4 pounds, which is basically 1 kilogram. And so we'll see pretty shortly here if it was low. I've got this scale. I'll go ahead and connect up to my recovery cylinder. Now I'll go to recovery and I'll hit start. So now I'm pulling refrigerant out of the car into the cylinder. I'm weighing the cylinder. I do see the weight of the cylinder going up and I see the pressures in the car going down. So we see those dropping slowly but steadily. The machine will automatically stop when these both get to below zero into a vacuum. So here we are. We see it dropping. This is our in. We're down to 13 psi and our out is in the bottle. So as we pull out of the car and into the bottle, the pressure goes down in the car and up in the bottle. And it'll beep when it's done.
It's got to go all the way down to that red zone to be done.
So it's got about half a charge of what it should have. So that would that's looking good for this being the fix. Okay, now we're going to go to the vacuum pump. The reason for the vacuum pump is we need to make sure the system is completely empty, free of air, and totally dry. Start the vacuum pump. We'll see the needles drop, and we will see them go into a very deep vacuum. You can see this gauge isn't terribly accurate down in the vacuum gauge. It only has 0 and 30 are the only two things it shows. Yet over here, I'm going to get a very accurate reading. So we're dropping quick. We're looking for below 500 to know that the system's tight and we've dried it out. So we're at 1500, dropping quick. Yeah, it's looking good. Now, if this system had a big leak, we wouldn't be able to get below 1,000 or 1,500. So we already know we don't have any major leaks. So yeah, we're getting a nice deep vacuum. I'll probably let it run for another minute and then switch over to my refill process. Okay, so I'm done with the micron gauge. I'll turn that off. Okay. Here's our virgin refrigerant. This is R134A. This is what most cars use. Okay, so I cannot have any air in this hose. If I did go ahead and fill the refrigerant through this hose into the system, it would also suck up a bunch of air, which would really hurt the performance. So I'm gonna screw this on loosely, and it's not seated yet, and I'm gonna crack open the cylinder over here. And now I can hear the gas coming out, so that means I've shot all the air out of this hose. And that's purging the hose. Okay. I'll go ahead and turn the cylinder over. And I'll wait for it to settle. Tear it out again. Okay, so we want 1 kilogram. I can open this. And I'll keep my eye on the scale. So we're looking for 1.05 is our total we're going for. And the reason we know that is because it's written right here on the information label, R134A, 1,050 grams, which is 1.05 kilograms. So it might stop taking in refrigerant on its own, and what we can do in that case is we can start the car, turn on the AC, and have it draw in more refrigerant with the compressor. Looks like that's all it's going to draw in. Back the manifold gauge on the low, and you'll see it'll draw in little by little. I'll draw in refrigerant. So I'm sort of cautiously letting the refrigerant in little by opening this valve a tiny bit and then closing it. And meanwhile, I'm also looking at this number. So you see I've drawn a little bit more in, and I'll just keep doing that, you know, sort of a little bit at a time until I get to my target, which is basically 1.0, 1.05 exactly. Getting there. And a little bit at a time and closing it. The reason to even bother with that is if too much goes in at once, it can hurt the compressor. Okay, there's our 1.0. And just a hair more. There we go. All right. So now we're all charged up. Yeah, we can turn the car off, and we'll remove all our equipment and test it out. I'll go ahead and back my gauges off. And pull it off. It's really important to get this cap back on. Same thing here. Okay, so we're all recharged. Let's take a look inside, and we'll go ahead and start the car and turn the AC on.
All right.
Moment of truth. Oh, feeling colder than it was before.
It's so hard to know on a cold day.
Oh yeah, I feel it getting.
It does feel a lot colder.
Oh yeah. So, you know, we can actually put a thermometer in the vent, but I feel it sort of getting uncomfortably cold where I feel the need to pull my hand away. That's my very basic test.
Yeah, it's definitely very cold.
We might really need to wait for a warm day. The other thing we could do is just put a thermometer in the vent. That's kind of a really reliable way. But yeah, it's definitely, yeah, it's working. Oh yeah, feel that. It's like you can't keep your hand there.
That's cold. That's the refreshing cold we're looking for.
Yeah, I think we got it.
Oh yeah, even on a cold day, sometimes you need extra cold.
All right, nice.